And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there is the wild man, Chris Wilds. And today, Chris, as we continue our deep dive into the preseason 2024 college football season, we're going to take a look at the cornerbacks in the Big Ten, the top 10 cornerbacks in the Big Ten. If this is your first time watching our previews of position groups, we encourage you to go back, watch the other videos we have done. We've been doing every position group in the Big Ten, ranking them from 10 down all the way to 1. And we use several different criteria, but the important thing is there's three of us who are giving our list, and this is the consensus list of the three of us combined. And it kind of takes out some of our own personal bias, if you will, when we do it this way. And I feel very confident that these lists are pretty accurate. And I would put them up against any quote unquote expert, because usually the experts are wrong. They don't watch every Big Ten game like Chris, myself, and JR are religiously doing on a football Saturday, and so I feel very confident that these rankings are accurate. So that being said, I know what the list is because I'm the one who compiled it. This man does not. I'm going to give you the list. He's going to react. I would love to know your comments on what you think we got right or wrong down in the comments section below. And please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell and get notified so you'll get notified every single time we go live or when we drop a new video. Are you ready, Chris?
Let's do it.
All right. Number 10 is Malik Spencer from Michigan State, the junior last year as a sophomore in 2023. Had pretty much the highest tackle number I saw of any quarterback in the Big Ten, cornerback, sorry. Chris, you had him unranked. JR had him 10th on his list. I had him 8th. That was good enough to put Malik at number 10 in the Big Ten heading into this season.
I can't argue with it. I mean, the kid's a good physical corner, tackling machine. Doesn't shy away from the contact. Didn't have any picks, but I'll tell you what, he did have 6 pass deflections. So, it's a solid pick at 10, I think.
At number 9, we're going to head out to Minnesota, where the Gophers have a senior with 45 tackles, a forced fumble, an INT, and 8 pass deflections last year. Chris, you had Justin Wally at number 9. JR had him 8th. I had him unranked. That was good enough to put him at 9th on this list, as he's going to lead the Gophers secondary this year.
Well, obviously, I think we got it right because this is right where I picked him. I mean, come on. I mean, what's to argue with? Yeah, again, another physical corner. He is in on plays. He's around the balls. 8 pass deflections tells you that to go with his interception and his forced fumble.
Number 8, the first cornerback who got a ranking from all three of us, and that is Tommy Hill from Nebraska. This Cornhusker started his career out as a cornerback before moving to wide receiver, Chris. Now he's back at the cornerback position for Matt Rule and leading that secondary in a much deeper defense for the Cornhuskers in 2024. Last year, 26 tackles, 4 interceptions, 9 pass deflections. Chris, you had him at 8th. I had him 10th, and JR had him 9th. That's good enough to put him at 8th. Obviously, you're not going to disagree again.
No, we're just boosting my ego with these, Eric. Making me look awful good right now.
Well, let's keep the ego train going for Chris, because at number 7 is Sebastian Castro from Iowa. You would think, given who they had at linebacker and how many tackles those linebackers had, there wouldn't be enough tackles to go around on this defense. But what was left, apparently Sebastian Castro got it last year for the Hawkeyes. 67 tackles. He had a sack, a forced fumble, 3 interceptions, 8 pass deflections. I had him ranked 6th. Chris, you and JR both had him at 7th. And for the third time in a row, Chris, you have rightly guessed the position of the cornerback that you ranked.
Well, I feel pretty good about that. Castro is very solid. He's not an outside corner. He's more that slot corner, I'll tell you, Eric. But he does a great job there. I think that's probably why he amassed as many tackles as he did. But, like you said, it's amazing to think that a corner could get 67 tackles on a team where 2 linebackers combined for what, about 250?
or more actually. I
or
think
more. Yeah,
closer to 300 something. Yeah,
that's right.
incredible.
Because one of them was at 170.
Yeah, the other one
So
was over
yeah,
100 too. Yeah,
yeah. So they were about 300 tackles. So yeah, that's amazing.
yeah. At number 6, we have our first Buckeye on this list. That is one Jordan Hancock. 41 tackles last year, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflections. Led the team and the cornerbacks in several categories last year, including sacks, tackles, and INTs. Jordan is obviously the most physical of the 3 cornerbacks at Ohio State, plays in that safety position, safety corner position, so he's getting a lot more play there. And so, Chris, you had him at 6th. JR had him 4th. I had him 7th. The train just keeps rolling for you in these positions of the cornerbacks.
Man, it's hard to be so right so often. Let me tell you. But Eric, I think this is a great spot for Jordan. I think he's an absolutely great talent. Like you said, a physical guy, um, goes out there, gets the job done. And man, Eric, let me tell you, if this guy stays healthy all year, I think the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, definitely NFL caliber.
Well, I believe
Oh,
he's
like
actually our highest rated among the pass coverage guys, oddly enough.
wow. Okay. Um, you couldn't obviously get another one right, could you?
I could.
You did. Number 5, Ricardo Hallman from Wisconsin. Last year in 2023, he led the Badgers with 34 tackles, 7 interceptions, and 8 pass deflections or 6. I can't tell. The slide's too small. I think that's 6. Chris, you had him at 5th. JR had him at 5th. I had him at 4th. That was good enough to put him right at 5th.
Yeah, I think this is exactly where he belongs. I think he needs to step up his game as far as tackles go a little bit, maybe. I mean, 34 tackles is not bad for a corner.
No, it's not.
But you know what? I think in Luke Fickle's physical brand of defense, I think that this number could be closer to 45 to 50.
All right, time to go back to Columbus. Number 4 is Davison Igbinosun, or Iggy for short, what we call him here in Columbus. He will be a junior this season. Last year in 2023, as a sophomore, first-year starter for Ohio State, after playing his freshman year at Ole Miss, he had 59 tackles, 5 pass deflections. Chris, you had him at 3rd. JR put him at 6th. I had him 3rd as well. That was good enough to land him at 4th.
Leave it to JR to screw up the momentum. Come on, man. How are you going to rank this guy down there? He was the difference maker on this Ohio State team. When he came in, they started playing a different brand of play at cornerback. I think that JR did this young man a disservice here, Eric. But you know what? Can't really complain about it being a top 5.
Yep. Now, this next one is going to be very controversial because there will be some who say he's higher than where he should be. I think he's overrated myself, but wait till you see where JR has him. Number
Oh, I'm
3,
sure I know.
Will Johnson from that team up north. 27 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 pass deflections last year as a sophomore. Chris, you had him at 4th. I had him at 5th. Yeah, JR, leave it to him to go on vacation so he doesn't have to face the chat and put a Wolverine at 1st in his list. There you go, JR.
You
Yeah,
know what?
true colors now are flying.
I wouldn't have a problem with putting him at 1st if I thought he was 1st. I'm like you, Eric. I think this guy is overrated. I think that he's not a aggressive physical tackler. I think that he is somebody who benefited from a system where the team cheated to get themselves where they were. And people will say, well, how much does that really matter in cornerback play? It matters a lot. You know how to jump a route if you know what route's coming.
Well, and if you
You,
knew it
you
was a
know
run, if you knew it
if
was a run, how did you
exactly
only end up at 27
27
tackles?
tackles. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. He is. You know who he reminds me of a lot? That guy coaching out in Colorado.
Deion Sanders?
I don't think he's as good a player as Deion Sanders, but Deion used to shy away from the hit rather than running towards it.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. All right, at number 2, interesting landing spot for Jabir Mamed, formerly of Washington, going to be a starter for Oregon last year. As a junior last year for the Huskies, he had 48 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, and look at this, 14 pass deflections. Nobody coming back on this list had more PDs than this guy right here. And he's going to be doing it now for the Ducks, who are their biggest rival is Washington. So he goes from Washington to Oregon. That's going to sting for the Husky fans. Chris, you and I both had him at second. JR had him at third. That puts him at second on this list.
Yeah, I absolutely think this is the right spot for this guy, Eric. He is a tremendous talent and somebody that no matter who's playing quarterback at Ohio State, come October 12th, they better know where this guy's at.
Yes.
Because this guy will make you pay.
Yes, he will. He's a tremendous athlete. Obviously going to be a first string, I think a first team all Big Ten corner, and the other one should be this guy right here. The number 1 corner at Ohio State, 4-year starter, Denzel Burke, started as a true freshman 4 years ago. Could have went to the NFL last year, decides to stick around for his senior season. Only 23 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, 8 pass deflections. But that's pretty good when no one throws the ball your way.
There's a
Literally.
reason. There is a reason that the numbers are so big for Davison Igbinosun and for Jordan Hancock. Like you said, no one throws the ball this guy's way. He is the consummate shutdown corner. He is the definition of a shutdown corner. This guy reminds me so much of another Denzel that played at Ohio State, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, he's liable to hurt some feelings this season.
Yeah. He's got barbecue back there.
He definitely does.
Yes, he does. Chris, you and I both said Denzel was first, and JR had him at second. So he's not a consensus first, number 1 cornerback in the Big Ten, according to the OHIO podcast, which is interesting. We've had several consensus players at their position, including Loveland, the tight end for the team up north, Jack Sawyer, the defensive end. The linebacker for Iowa, his name's escaped me, who had 170 some tackles. He's a consensus number 1 at his position. So interesting that Denzel was a 1 JR vote short from that.
Leave it to our version of Kirk Herbstreit to screw this up.
Oh, JR, we're just playing with you, man. We love you, brother. So there you go. That's our top 10 cornerback consensus list. Chris, your overall thoughts?
Well, since I got about 80% of it on the money, I feel like that's a pretty good list,
Yes.
Eric.
7 out of 10, I think you did, actually.
Yeah.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, so I feel pretty solid about that. I think it's a pretty good list. And, I think that this season, we're going to see the contenders separated from the pretenders, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to find that, and we're going to get a lot of love from the team up north on this one. I think we're going to find that one Mr. Johnson is
not what he's cut out to be.
Yeah.
I think he's still good.
I do too. He's a 5-star player, and I think he's lived up to 5-star potential. I just think that, much like their championship, there's a huge asterisk beside it.
Fair enough.
And until he does it this season on the big stage, I think everything's a big question mark.
Mm-hmm. How many of these guys do you think are possible first-round draft picks in the NFL next year?
Denzel Burke is definitely.
Muhammad.
I think the kid from Oregon. I don't think I see Castro sliding up in there. I don't think I see Davison sliding up in there in the first round. You may see Will Johnson be a beneficiary of the hype. I would say solid 2, possibly as many as 4.
So we'll set the over under at 2.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Interestingly enough, too, the other thing that I thought was very interesting about this list, all three of us agreed on 8 out of the 10 having them ranked. Only two guys were unranked by one of us on
Yeah.
this top 10 list. That has not happened on any of the top 10 lists that we have done before, which meant that literally only 12 guys were ranked out of us three, which is very interesting. So um, I think that this is definitely a top heavy list in the Big Ten where there's a lot of knowns and then there's a bunch of unknowns at corner. And that's something to keep your eye on because if corner play is really good on one side of the field for a team and it's really bad on the other side of the field, then there's going to be a lot of holes on a lot of defenses in the Big Ten. So I think if you're Ohio State, you're feeling really good that you not only have two, but three guys in that secondary, which just goes to tell you, just like we've been talking about all offseason, this defensive secondary for Ohio
And
State is elite.
Eric, I don't know that the best potential talent in that list isn't sitting just off the list. And
Yeah,
one
and
Jermaine Matthews
Jermaine Matthews
Jr.
Jr. Yeah, and so yeah, and again, if you're going to be able to rotate, and if there's an injury, you're not too worried. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll tell you, it's amazing to me, like you said, how top heavy this is. But I think that people sleep on some of these other corners too. Nebraska, that's a team you got to watch. They've got two very good corners. Just Tommy Hill happens to be the more well known of the two. I think the kid on the other side's a pretty strong corner as well. His
hmm
name escapes me right now. Uh, you know,
believe it
somebody
or not, USC's got two really good corners.
they do.
They just were on the outside, barely on the. I looked at both of them, and they're just kind of on the outside looking in. They're more
Yes.
name recognition than they are production value from a season ago. But new defensive coordinator coming over from UCLA over to USC. Um, I think that the defense can only get better for the Trojans, and I think
Well,
they're going.
Bryson Shaw's gone, right? That's an
Well,
instant
that helps
improvement
out
right there.
immensely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an instant improvement right there.
Like, share, subscribe. We really do appreciate all that you do as listeners and watchers of the consumption of this content. And Chris, we have three position groups left to go. Three more:
What's our position group next week?
wide receiver,
So
university.
who's the one receiver that's going to make it with all the other Ohio State receivers?
That's a good question. Minnesota's got a top flight guy who's still hanging around. So Minnesota might snag one in there. Oregon's gonna have some to look at.
I don't know. I think you got 9 Ohio State guys and maybe one other.
We'll see. We'll see how the list shakes out next week. But with the wide receivers, so come back next week, check that out, and watch some of the other videos if you haven't already. We really do appreciate it. Till next time, OH.
IO.